Hello? Ah, there we go. I'm on. Okay, good. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Yeah? All right, well, we're going to try to make through this. I'm running on coffee and 3 hours sleep after picking up the mission team and driving to Atlanta. I'm not going back to Atlanta without a cop and a guard dog. Let's just put it that way, okay? If you have your Bibles with you, please turn to Matthew chapter 7. I'm going to have to take off my jacket because I'm going to get a little bit hot here in a minute. Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 through 28. Starting with verse 24. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, because he taught as one who had authority and not as their teachers of the law. When you were a kid, how many of you remember Lincoln Logs or had Lincoln Logs? Come on, raise your hand. How many of you had Lincoln Logs? Lincoln Logs were cool, weren't they? They were great because you sat there and you could build like whole cities of like what you saw in Gunsmoke, Bonanza, or on a John Wayne movie. I had Lincoln Logs. I enjoyed them. I'd build little towns in my whole house. Eventually, Mom came and took them and gave them to a school without asking me, so I didn't get to play with Lincoln Logs anymore. But then something else cool came around. Legos. Yeah, Legos, huh? Legos were cool. They were even cooler than Lincoln Logs, weren't they? I mean, did you know, and if you ever get a chance, I don't know if any of you have been, but if you ever go to Las Vegas, all right, just for sightseeing, okay? If you ever go to Las Vegas just for sightseeing, that in Caesar's Palace there's a mall. And did you know there's a 3-story toy store at Caesar's Palace? You can't miss it because they have a giant Trojan horse from the Iliad. It's right there at the doorway. But they have a whole section dedicated to Legos. You go in there, you can build robots, you can build vehicles. They even have a life-size Darth Vader, okay, standing right there. Look at Chris. I see Chris Terry over there. His eyes just got wide up, man. We know some Star Wars, don't we? You can even push buttons and it makes a... I mean, it's cool, you know, and I spent like an hour there before my dad said, come on, son, you're 23, let's go, all right? Legos are so cool, they actually have their own theme park. Did you know they actually have one in California? And I believe they have one over in Europe somewhere too, where basically you can either build Legos or ride a ride made out of Legos, I guess. I really don't know how that works, but apparently it's a theme park that you can go have fun with. After that, there was Connects. Did anyone have, Robert, that's probably more towards your age. Did you have any Connects? No? You don't know? I don't have a picture of Connects. I couldn't find Connects. You had Connects. Jordan had Connects. Connects were like building a clock without putting a cover on it. You got to see things and the wheels turn and everything. You could build roller coasters. At Space Camp, we even built a mock-up of Saturn V out of Connects. Now they got something called magnetics. I don't know. I don't play with anymore. Because I'm an uncle with a 1.5-year-old nephew, I play with Mega Blocks. Or actually, I build stuff and then he throws it across the room, okay? He hasn't quite figured out that you got to keep it built, okay? But did you know that with Legos, with Lincoln Logs, with Connects, magnetics, all this stuff, did you know that while you were having fun, you were learning something? Did anyone know that? Bet now you're sitting there going, man, I was learning something when I was a kid having fun. Well, that's no fun at all. But see, that's the best kind of learning is when you're doing it and you don't even know you're doing it. You learned, see, the thing is, with all this stuff, you actually learn stuff from, like, you had to learn how to build from the bottom up, that you couldn't build from the top down. Trust me, I've tried to build stairs from the top down. It doesn't work, okay? You build from the bottom up. You also learn that sometimes your first design didn't exactly pan out, so you actually would have to start over. And sometimes you would fail, or we would fail at the building several times. We knew how to put the pieces together, but didn't have the knowledge to make it strong and sturdy until someone showed us how to put the pieces together right. I remember the day I learned how to put the Lego blocks in just the right order, so when you threw that thing, it didn't break automatically, okay? Loved it. Okay? In today's scripture, we have Christ ending a pretty powerful sermon. What I just read to y'all today is his final words of the sermon, his conclusion to this sermon. And his sermon that actually starts in chapter 5 of Matthew. Christ starts talking about the Beatitudes, judging others, the salt and the light. He actually talks about murder. He talks about divorce. He talks about fasting. He talks about loving your enemies, and so on. What Christ was doing was he was actually giving us a sermon on the building blocks to make our faith and our relationship with Him, with God, stronger. Because he ends very quickly, hey, those who take these teachings to heart are building on a rock-solid foundation. Christ even labels the fool. All right? The fool is, according as Christ labeled, is those who do not take the teachings that He gives us to heart. So it's like building a house on sand. You know what? Let's just say they're building a sandcastle. All right? We've all seen it. When you build a sandcastle and you build it too close to shore, what happens? That wave comes in, Les Jordan goes like that. Yeah. I mean, it's no fun anymore. I mean, then you have to rebuild. And so once the waves come in, there's no solid foundation. Doesn't say there's not a foundation. There's no solid foundation. There's the key word. There's no solid foundation. And so they have to keep rebuilding from scratch again and again. See, the thing is, in the church here in America sometimes, we classify those with no foundation, no solid foundation, as non-believers. And I don't think we ever have the right to say who's a non-believer and who's not a believer. All right? To label people that. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I believe there are people in the churches across this country sitting in pews today, sitting in chairs in contemporary services, in traditional services, all across, that do not have a rock-solid foundation. They believe, but they don't have a strong, rock-solid foundation. Why is that? It's because, truthfully, they've never been taught how to have a foundation or to build upon one. Sometimes in the church, we get so worried about getting them in the door, getting them down the aisle during an invitation, and then we forget about them. Come on in, take salvation. Here's a Bible, going to lunch. We do that a lot. We forget. We got to remember that we're supposed to help teach and encourage, especially when new people come into the family. If you'll remember, here in the United Methodist, what happens when you don't feed yourself, Peter? You get hungry. You start to get malnourished. You get weak, right? People that come into this church, people are starving to be taught. They're starving for building blocks. And sometimes we just say, here's a Bible, hope you make it. And I don't think that we mean to, but that sometimes becomes the norm sometimes. In the Church, the United Methodist Church, when someone is baptized or someone joins the church, we have a whole little ceremony, don't we? We get in, and when the minister in charge, he asks us what? That we're going to help them grow in their faith, help them confirm their hope, and perfect their love. It's on page 38 of our hymn books. We've had 2 services, and we've done that. One in SpiritLink, one traditional since I've been here. We've had new people come in, baptized, and that was what was asked of us. So it's part of who we are. That we're supposed to be checking in, going, hey, what's going on? How is your walk with Christ going? And see, what usually happens is when we don't feed them, months later, wow, do you remember so-and-so? Where are they at? They didn't get fed. I had a bishop in the United Methodist Church once told me, and said, a well-fed sheep will not leave a pasture. Meaning that if they're not fed, they'll find a place to get food. But see, it's like the salvation is kind of the contract that says, hey, you know what, let's start building upon the foundation. Let's pour that concrete. Let's start building a wall. But I'm going to tell you right now, a construction crew without a foreman pushing it never gets anything built. But you know, we can't just sit there and say it's the new people that come into the church, or the newbies, as sometimes we'll classify it. There are people in our churches sometimes, members of the Christ Church, that have been around for years, sometimes have been taught, but still in certain areas don't take Christ's words to heart. The last sermon that I was privileged to give in this worship center was on the prodigal son. And even though we focused on the other brother, the prodigal son was still evident. And you have to look at it. He had a good foundation through his family. I believe he knew right from wrong, but he still didn't build because it didn't suit him. This can be a large group in our church, and we've all been a part of this group at least once in our lifetime. Or we will be. Where we said, you know what, I know better, I was taught better, but it doesn't fit what I want to do right now. Case in point. Excuse me. I once had a friend named Sam. When we were about 14 years of age, getting ready to go into our freshman year of high school, it was August, and his parents decided they could trust us enough on a Saturday afternoon to leave us by ourselves at the house. Already I can see in your eyes that this story cannot be going anywhere good, right? Well, we were doing everything. It was so hot outside. We'd go out for a little bit, but then we'd come back in. Nothing was on TV, all right? Of course, except for music videos, and this is when MTV actually played music videos, okay? And so we were bored. And, we couldn't get was trying to get like, okay, where's this? Where's the code so we can order like this movie off the satellite dish? It was locked in his parents' his master bedroom. They didn't trust us completely, apparently. So we're going in there, and we're looking all over the house. We've been shooting each other with foam darts, hitting each other with sticks, average 14-year-old stuff, And all of a sudden, we found something. We found a bottle rocket. Even though it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I look over at Sam and said, we've got to light this. Because, let's face it, Daniel, when you're 14, you find a bottle rocket, what's the natural thing to do? Light it, right? Yeah, of course. Here is the problem. His parents locked all the matches and the lighters in the master bedroom. And we tried to get in there. But apparently our lock-picking skills weren't that great. And I look over at Sam and I said, I got an idea. You have a gas stove, right? And instead of Sam being the smart one, going, no, man, no. Dad said we never touch the stove. He goes, let's light it. So we get over there to that gas stove. And there goes that bottle. Now, the bottle rocket was about this big. Had a fuse about that big. I've never seen any bottle rocket like this. We light it. You know the point when all those lessons start coming back to you that you know that you shouldn't have been doing what you're doing? Happened right about the time we lit the fuse on that bottle rocket, okay? And we're coming through, and all you can do is this. It's like slow motion. What do we do? And Sam's like, get it out of my house, And, I'm running, and I'm running. And I throw the bottle rocket out the back door. And I turn to Sam, and I go, hit the deck! And we dive into the table, because at this point, the bottle rocket has kind of turned in midair, and it's starting to ignite, and it is going towards his dad's truck. So we had watched enough of those, 1960s and 50s bomb videos where they got under the desk. We felt the tables